Hey, Joanna. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Hey, Tim.
So, one thing that we still need to do is to give our viewers a few examples on the leadership cockpit framework and what it's designed to do. And one of the things that we're going to do within this is differentiate between the definition of what we call a direct leader and a lateral leader. This is a concept and a business structure that is picking up speed in a lot of organizations. It's 2023 at the moment, especially tech organizations, where they divide the responsibility of people who deal with people and people who deal with product. So let's see, the definition of a lateral leader is the person who is responsible for the product, for the movement of that product, the creation of plans and tasks around the development of that product, versus the definition of the direct leader who is responsible for leading the people, making sure that the people are motivated, working, and doing whatever they need to do. So we've got two people there. And one of the most important things that we say throughout our discussions in the leadership journey is that the closer these two people are together in their discussion, the better, because there are so many discussions which are going to be relevant for both of them. A lot of things go wrong when there is no good relationship between the lateral leader and the direct leader. Other names that are given to the direct leader are team captain, for example, team leader. And then from the lateral side, you have anything from product manager to project manager, to systems architect, any number of different job descriptions and job titles that are given to people who do not have people management as a part of their role. And then, of course, you've got normal people, right? So not normal, but you've got traditional leaders, and they do everything. Yeah. So what's very interesting is speaking to traditional leaders who are confronted with this concept and the difference between lateral and direct, and getting them to understand that there are problems and conflicts created out of that differentiation that is interesting for the individual to kind of internalize for their own purposes. Anyway, let's have a look at a couple of examples. I'll just give one example from our side. In Werkvia, I'm responsible for the GDPR process. Yeah, the data protection and making sure that data is kept clean within the organization and we're doing the right thing around the data. And that fits into two different areas of the leadership cockpit. One of them is effective processes, functions, and structures. So the GDPR process belongs to me. I need to track it, control it, make sure if there are any changes, then that people are updated with it. And if I leave, then I need to hand this over and make sure it's documented effectively. It also links into that piece on the other side of the cockpit, leading change and resolving conflicts, because if there is a GDPR escalation, then it can result in a conflict, and therefore there is a conflict resolution step-by-step approach that we need to put into practice, and so it fits in with both of those areas. But let's have a look at a couple of examples. Joanna, why don't you give us a couple of examples from the perspective of a direct lead, a team lead?
Yeah, so when we talk about the purpose and the why and focusing on a common goal, I had a boss a while back, and he would do a regular meeting for the whole company. Every 2 months or every 6 weeks. He didn't call it the town hall, but everybody had to come, and it was really appreciated. And he was always speaking about the bigger picture, where he was going, what his plans were, what was important for everyone to understand about the next 6 weeks to 2 months. A different team that I worked with had a document called the team canvas, and they kept this document updated. Yeah, they spoke about a lot of the things that you see here in the cockpit: sense of purpose, rules for the team, deliverables, roles and responsibilities, common goals and values. In terms of leading change and resolving conflict for direct leads, I've seen a concept called lessons learned, which is very similar to a retrospective. So one of the teams that I used to work with had a very strong lessons learned culture, and they would do large projects and always have a lessons learned discussion at the end of it. And there were 2 people dedicated into bringing those lessons learned into practice and make sure that they won't be repeated. And this team was known as the Iron Team. They were so used to the negative that nothing could bring them down. In terms of leading people for the direct leads, I've seen a very interesting example of one-on-ones and the impact of one-on-ones on a team. In my experience, managers don't do enough one-on-ones. The focus is given to the team discussions, and one-on-ones are left behind usually. But it does work well when there is a clear structure behind every team. They create space for honest feedback and are proven to boost team performance. And one-on-ones prevent conflict between team members. So one example from one of the companies I used to work with, this was back in 2007, I think. One of our team leads was sent to the client in Finland to set up the project. So this was the new client, and his job was to create the relationship, set up the team, just get everything rolling. And upon his return, he suddenly started doing one-on-ones with his team members. And you should know that back in 2007, it was not part of the game. Agile principles were slowly gaining traction, especially in an outsourcing country. But 6 months later, all of our colleagues working on various other projects were asking to be moved to his team. That's how huge the impact it had. In terms of anticipating future and driving innovation, this is really important for direct leads, because it helps the team see the future or imagine how things could be or how things could get improved. And what we used to do when I was in one of the former companies I used to work for, once per year, we would do a team building with team leads and project managers, product managers, scrum masters, and product owners, and the CEO. And we would do a workshop that is called strategic planning. What does it mean? It means that we start with the why and with a vision for the future, and we put it together based on various criteria. We establish objectives based on the vision, then we establish specific objectives based on the general objectives, and then we vote the urgency or necessity of these, and then we assign roles, deadlines, and everything else that needs to be established to put things in motion. And then we discuss money. And 6 months later, we do a check-in, see how things go, what needs review, what needs to be, changed.
That's very cool. So just as a small summary there, number one, you mentioned the town hall fits into that nurturing and focusing this sense of purpose and why. Brilliant when, El Jefe Grande, the big boss, can get the whole team, whether it's 50 people or 150 people together and send that message consistently. You mentioned a team canvas, which is a tool. So to any viewers who are in team lead positions, go and have a look on Google for the team canvas. You will find a document which very much starts in that center of purpose in the middle, but then branches out into achieving results, leading people, and a number of different areas as well. Lessons learned, brilliant practice for the purpose of leading change and resolving conflicts, but also for anticipating future. Also as a way of checking that results piece. Great one-to-one story. That's and funny that they came from Finland to work that out. Yeah, because Finland they're not big on group activities, but they are big on one-to-one discussions. And then looking into the future of the team with our team building or business planning session, I worked with a sales organization which had a really excellent account planning methodology that they instigated on a yearly basis for larger sales teams. And it was really around this: what is the future of our customer and where do we want them to be in 1 year, definitely, but 2 years and 3 years. And it was also embedded within a team building approach. Mike, could you give us a couple of examples from a lateral, more from a lateral leads perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to highlight is, of course, that every leader is likely to encounter every aspect of the leadership cockpit in some form or another. But of course, the focus areas can be very different depending on whether it's direct or lateral. And if you're a lateral leader, the first focus area is very likely to be achieving those results. Why? Because you are the owner of a product, a process, a project. So it's very important for you to keep an eye on those results. Now, the first way you could do that is to develop a roadmap. So this is a very clear and specific timeline of how you're going to develop your idea, how you're going to move towards those results and the success of this project, the implementation of this product or process. So creating that timeline over the mid to long term, is usually months and years rather than weeks, keeps a focus on the way you're moving from where you are right now towards those results that you really need. What's really going to be important for you then is also to keep a strong eye on the future and innovation. So in a previous role, I worked in the banking and finance industry, and every year I was sent to an industry fair. Now, at that industry fair, yes, of course, we were presenting ourselves, we were presenting our product, our innovations, but what we were also doing was witnessing and keeping a close eye on where the market was going, what was new, what was different, what were the innovations that were being brought up that maybe we hadn't even encountered or thought of before. So this was a great opportunity for us, not only to present ourselves, but of course also to just have a look and see what's happening. Where do we need to change? Do we need to adapt our roadmap to implement some of these things as well? Of course, I've highlighted those two aspects, but the central focus of the why is just as important for lateral leaders as it is for direct leaders. So for example, in an organization we work with, you have a series of lateral leaders with products and processes and anything else they're managing. But once every quarter, they get together for a value pack meeting. This is a meeting where they can share their experiences with each other, and it really keeps a focus on the roadmap, brings in innovations, but it also helps to maintain that sense of the why. Where are we going? Are we on track? And are we aligned with the bigger picture of what the company is looking to achieve?
Yeah, and the value pack meeting is a specific terminology associated with the tech industry. And if you take Joanna's town hall meeting, which would be for a larger population, which is making sure the whole organization is on board with the sense of direction and purpose, this kind of quarterly meeting will very often be between business unit leaders and a lot of the people who are responsible for deciding what results are we going to check out of this. And that will then determine the trickle-down approach to the way that results are measured across the whole organization and across the year. So, you know, as you said, Mike, lateral leaders are going to be focusing definitely on that sense of purpose and why, achieving results and anticipating the future. I like the example of getting sent away to a trade fair every year. I bet that was fun for everybody, you know, great excuse for doing all things trade fair related. But it means that the boss in question, he did have an idea. Yeah, he said, you know, let's let our guys enjoy the process. But I'm assuming that when you returned back from that trade fair, you had the requirement of putting data on the table and saying these are the trends and developments that we noticed from our discussions.
That's absolutely right, and often it was so clear to see, because in terms of where people were going, where the kind of queues were building up, all that kind of stuff, you see, you know, the tried and tested things are there and they're well established, but the new ideas, the big innovations, that's what's drawing the real interest of the people there. Yeah, so we definitely had to come back with that information and our insights into where things were moving.
And in the achieving results place, you know, every leader has to measure their own work, the work of the organization and the people around them. And so while we say that for sure it's important for the lateral leaders, but you know, every direct lead and people manager has to confront themselves with the fact that at the essence of leadership, we need to track, control, judge, evaluate, and decide and make decisions. And if I'm not doing that, then I may not be doing my job as a leader to the best possible extent. Behind that achieving results piece, at a very essential and basic level, you'll find the time management and prioritization matrix, or something similar to that. The original Toyota examples would call it simply a to-do list backed up with a mechanism of looking how that is planned, checked, acted on, and given feedback to. So a loop behind the to-do list. In a more complex version, you would see things such as KPI lists, balanced scorecards, management by objectives, Hoshin Canry matrix, various different tools, a Gantt chart in project management, and any number of different systems and mechanisms designed to put, these are the results that we want to achieve, and this is how we're going to measure them. So it can get quite large, holistic, and complex, but at the end of the day, it boils down to the fact that there is a question in front of every leader: Am I assessing what's going on in my world, and do I have a way of measuring it, and do I have clear targets on what I want to achieve over time? Great. Other examples, maybe anticipating future, driving innovation. One of the lean management principles that we looked at a couple of weeks ago said that any time you save in reducing wastage should be thrown into development. And in the ideal world, 20% of your time should be focused on developing whatever it happens to be, whether that's yourself or your product or your workflow. But 20% of time can be thrown into, you know, working on your future and driving innovation. Yeah? And so you will find examples like certain amounts of time within a 2-week period being devoted to development, where people have flexibility and time to focus on the things that they want to do, and many examples from around there. So, Leadership Cockpit. One final concluding remark: there is a larger picture behind this. We're looking at the inner circle here, which is really the intrinsic areas and important areas for the individual leader. But around that, there are other things as well. So that will be the topic of another clip coming up at some stage soon. That is the bigger picture behind yourself as a leader. And for sure, all of these areas are flexible. Yeah. Do you sit down and write up your leadership cockpit on a regular basis? Probably not. Should you? Probably yes. Yeah. If your boss comes in and says, "What's your plan?" You're going to write something. What's that plan going to look like? If you're a team leader and you've been using the team canvas for a few years, that's absolutely the thing that you would go to in order to demonstrate, this is where I'm going. This is why I'm going there. These are the things that are important to me as a leader and to my team. And the cockpit is the reflection of this. So does it need to be on paper? No. Does it need to be very clearly in your mind? Absolutely, as a checklist. All good? See you next time.
Thanks, Tim.